We all come to pray, going back for warriors, keeping the whispers away. In suits and in skirts, we're the rebels you say, talking about life and dreaming of a different day. On the back row we stay, in the back we don't sway, just let the sermon flow. We're on the back row.
It is time for another episode of the Cultural Hall. It is an Articles of News episode. I'm joined by the news wizard himself, Verlin. Great to have you here.
Excited to be here.
It's relative
Yeah.
here, right? You're moving. You're out. Basically, the people are knocking on the door saying, "When are you going to be done? Would you mind?"
That's right. That's right. Between work travel, it seems like I'm going to be living out of a suitcase in a box for a while. I can officially state that I will be homeless for 2 weeks.
Okay, so that's not that long, and not terribly uncommon, though. It sounds dreadful.
Good thing we have friends that are willing to let us crash at their place for most of it.
Now you're actually doing that, the crashing at friend's house?
Yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're going to be gone for part of it on a family holiday for the 4th of July. But other than that, we're going to be crashing at a good friend's house for most of it.
I feel like that's something you do in your 20s, not in your whatever you are.
Right,
now.
exactly.
Yeah.
So proving yet again that I'm actually younger than my age would suggest.
Okay.
Yeah.
That just sounds so. In case they listen to this, I'm sure that you are eternally grateful for the gesture that they
absolutely
made towards this.
Yes,
but also,
absolutely. It's not payback at all in any case. Hint, hint. But yes.
but I hate the idea of like not having a home for a couple of weeks. Now I know you can't have picked it or anything like that, but where you're just like, "Hi, I'm a guest," but not really a guest. We know that I'm going to be here for this short time. And also I've got so much on my mind right now that it's not like I'm on vacation and guesting. It just sounds just like a whole lot of comfort.
That would be nice. That would be nice. And all the logistics between getting things moved out of this house and getting things moved into storage while we're waiting for the next house and then getting things moved into the next house. And to be honest, I'm trying to put the lightest load possible on our ward elders quorum because I know how that goes.
Sure.
And so we're trying to be good stewards from that standpoint and make sure when they are helping, everything's organized, everything's packed, it's all easy in, easy out.
I appreciate that. Interesting that you bring it up. As far as the ward elders quorum, and you've heard me probably talk about this before, I won't pack people. I know that probably seems sort of like a rude, tough line.
I won't either.
If I came to your house and it was like, "Yeah, we need help. Can you pack us?" I'd be like, "I appreciate the invitation to do so. I'm not going to do that."
Yeah. I'll carry anything you want, but I'm not going to pack.
Yeah. And I typically give people an hour. I feel really great. And here's the deal about that hour. I will work so hard. I will get so sweaty. I will hulk the things and blah, 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 whatever. And then at an hour, I'm like, "Yeah, hire a mover if you need more than an hour from me."
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you.
It's a boundary that is ridiculous. When you look at all of the boundaries I don't keep, it's funny that is one that I actually do keep pretty well.
Well, be proud about the ones you can keep.
Thank you very much.
It's good.
So when we chatted about it before, did you finally figure out, obviously, knowing that you're only going to be homeless for 2 weeks, you know where you're headed?
We found a place. Yeah. The end of the road is we found a great place in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, back to Chapel Hill, which is what brought us to North Carolina in the first place, going to grad school there.
Okay.
And we know people in the ward, and although I'm going to tell some secrets here, and hopefully Susan doesn't yell at me for this, but she stated when we were going to move that she wanted a move-in ready house that she felt comfortable with the way it was.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we purchased is a house that's awesome, except we're going to spend significant dollars, probably to the tune of a couple of $100,000 doing renovations in the house.
Oof.
So it's great location. It's great design. It's classic mid-century modern, but it was built in 1971 and literally has not been updated at all since.
Okay.
So it's got the original stovetop, the original oven, the original refrigerator.
That's awesome. Crazy. Are you going to hang on to those things?
Probably not, because they're all in disrepair.
So I'll tell you what, though, you'll look at them and you'll say, "This is junk." If you sell it on Facebook Marketplace, people will purchase your junk. So don't just throw it out just because it's old.
We'll
You don't
sell
want
it.
someone throwing you out just because you're old. So think of it that.
That's why I maintain my weight where it's at. It makes it a
Right.
little more difficult.
Right. Harder
Yeah.
to do that way. That's awesome. Good for you. Have you ever renovated a home like that before?
We have not. We've done additions to our current home, but we've never renovated a home. So this is going to be an adventure.
Okay, so I've done it twice with my
Mhm.
now wife. Here is what you need to know. Are you?
Yep.
And I hope you're leaning in, you and everyone
I'm
else.
writing
as
it
well.
down. Yes. Well, this is on the record. So yeah, I
Yeah.
can go back.
Yeah. You need to constantly like when you're putting in grass and maybe you're doing it from seed or maybe you're doing it from sod, but like every day you're watering it and you're like, oh, is it taking root and is it doing everything that it needs to be?
Yeah.
In addition to all of the headache and choices and things and payments and money going out and all the things that you'll be doing with the renovation, you also need to make sure that, like new lawn, you pay attention to your relationship or you won't make it. I'm not joking. I know you guys have been together for how long?
38 years
Yeah,
last
it doesn't
week.
matter. Doesn't matter.
Yep.
38 years feels like 38 minutes because renovating a home, there is nothing like it. And that is both great and terrible. So
here's half my strategy. Most of my career, I've traveled for work. My strategy is I'm going to be gone most of the time.
Perfect.
So I can't annoy Susan too much.
But you have to be highly aware of the fact that she is living in it and that it is uncomfortable. So if you have to be like, hey, babe, they're in the thick of this. Let's go away for a night just to a hotel in our same city where we live.
Yeah.
Yes, in our same city where we live, because I love you so much, or you won't make it, Verlin. You will not. Don't rest on your 38-year laurels.
I won't. I
Okay.
won't.
That marital advice brought to you by bad choices in my past.
The
Funny.
best source. Yeah.
So I got a quick little church-related thing that I'll share with you. Then we've got a bunch of news. Verlin has lined it out for us, you guys. We're going to get through as much as we can. But this is church-related. I got the call to go meet with the bishop. Well, technically with the stake president.
Even better.
First, right? And it's like, hey, we want you.
Can we say
wife.
Bishop Stedman?
No. Hold on. Hold your horses. So
High Councilman Stedman.
Hold on, Verlin. When I
Young Men's no, they don't have Stake Young Men's president. Yes, no, they don't. They're on the High Council.
I think they do. Don't they have Stake Young Men?
I think the member of the High Council is the Stake Young Men's president.
Anyway, that's not what I mean. So I get the text message that says, "Hey, we'd like you to meet with you and your wife," and my text message, although I don't have it right in front of me, said something like, "I don't appreciate the not knowing. Can you please tell me what this is about?" And you know where you stand, and nope, you're wrong. He's making a guess. If you're watching on YouTube or in a Patreon group, he made a guess and it's incorrect. I said, listen, I don't care for the magic, spring it on you and then pray about it. I'm going to pray about it. I'm going to engage this the way that you would like me to. So here is a text message. Tell me what it's about. I'll see you at the time. We'll go. And he's like, I appreciate that. And I was like, good, great. I'm grateful for it. They wanted me to be the executive secretary to our new bishop.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. Well, hold on, Verlin. So I had gone.
You do realize the executive secretary runs the ward.
Well, so hang on, Verlin. Let me get there. So when I went and spoke with the bishop a couple weeks ago to get my recommend so I could go to the Taylorsville open house, he said, is there a calling that you would particularly like or something that you feel like you would enjoy? And I was like, I want to be the records clerk. Assign me this for 6 months. Let me be the records clerk. And so, the stake presidency actually met with one of the counselors. He said, there's what the calling is. And my wife came in and I said, on the surface, it seems like I cannot do this calling because of the time commitment on Sunday and the time commitment on nights of the week. I don't know if he knew that or what we're doing. But I know that I need to talk with him before I would have any sort of answer for you. And so talk to the counselor in the stake presidency, and my wife's like, yeah, how would you do that? And I'm like, I don't know how I would do it. So I talked to the bishop and I said, hey, this calling was extended. Am I like executive secretary so I can do the records clerk? Is that how we're sort of couching this? And you've got a lot of retired gentlemen that are in my ward that could do, like, if he wanted to split it, really, he could have the executive secretary that does the meetings and the notes, and I could be the scheduling and the records, right? Or whatever.
Yeah.
I didn't know what he was doing. So I said, what are you planning? And he's like, well, it's going to be, 8 hours on Sunday and, this on whatever. And I just was like, so I'm not one to say no necessarily, but like I am working on Sundays until October at this point, and then I put, so I did not do. I said no, I cannot do the calling.
Sometimes that's what you have to say.
Sure. But here's the interesting thing. So if you dial it back about 6 months ago, I was talking about, and I've talked about this multiple times, but I remember about 6 months ago saying how I was sort of lamenting the fact that I couldn't be in leadership because my wife's not a member of the church, or because I had been excommunicated and then rebaptized. And so, although some of that's still true, this was an opportunity, as you indicated, for me to essentially be in charge of the ward. And so I owe, certainly my church leaders, but kind of audience in general, an apology of part of it is my life is not in line to be able to do something like that. And not like poor choices or things, whatever, but because of what I do professionally and how those things work and how they come up and all of that, it isn't, oh, poor me, because of these circumstances of which I have either, made the choice or whatever, am not able to do it. It's also the choices that I've made professionally. And so I wanted to come clean. I wanted to be honest. I wanted to say, hey, it's not just this thing, and put that out there. And that was interesting for me to kind of have that come right to the front of my mind to go, yeah, okay. Yes, part of that is true. And if you really wanted to have these sort of leadership callings or something like that, you also would have to lead your life in a different way, professionally, etc. So that was that. Yeah.
Well, you may have thought about this, and it's not an original thought of mine. I had a stake president that's a good friend of mine that shared this with me years ago. He said, sometimes the Lord knows you cannot serve in a calling, but he wants it extended to you so that you understand his love, trust, and confidence in you.
I had not considered that, but I certainly like that. That feels good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because there were a couple of times where you probably aren't supposed to say this, I was on the short list for certain callings,
Sure.
right? And after being called, after not being called, this good friend of mine said, the Lord's communicating this to you. And by the way, something else will come shortly. And
Sure.
he was absolutely right. But that was a great comfort to understand. Sometimes the Lord just looks at us and said, you need a little boost. I'm going to tell you what I think, how good you really are and how much I appreciate you.
I really like that. I like that perspective for sure. Yeah. So I'm still an elders quorum teacher. That's where I'm at. Teaching is certainly something that I'm far more comfortable with than my wife. Because she's great and just sort of says what's on her mind. She's like, it's meetings? They would give you a calling that is just meetings? Do they not know how much you hate
an ADHD's nightmare? Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, listen, I know, but I have to at least hear them out. And she's like, so we have to get up early and meet with this guy that you're probably not going to be able to do this because they don't know that you have this schedule because we're, and I just was like, yeah. That's what we do. Works. Thank you for being supportive. I'm not going to do that calling. And we move along. So
that's great.
Tons of news. Perhaps maybe we should even tease a little bit of the news.
Yeah.
We do that on occasion. Let's see. So I actually added to what you said, but we're going to talk about nuclear war. Let's see if I can do this like the things. There's something in this world that might be killing you. We can talk about that. Let me get great news teases like if there's something in your kitchen that could take your children. Oh, yeah. How you can take a vacation from your mission. That's a good tease.
Oh, yes, that's a good one.
Let's see. And no, that's...
And the best advice on wedding gifts possible.
Yes. and you got someone in your life getting married soon. Here's what not to get them. That's coming back in the second half of Articles of News. BestDJinUtah.com is the website. That is where you go if you would like me to come and DJ your event. Now, will I do a family reunion where you all wear the same t-shirts? You bet I will. Will I travel to wherever you're at? Am I reasonable as far as what I cost? Yes. Yes. Do I bring a good time? Yeah, all the things. Listen, Best DJ in Utah, it's my company. It's a thing I do that allows me to be able to have the time to do the cultural hall. So if someone's getting married, you think, man, they need a great DJ. You're throwing a party, whether it's a 50th or 60th or 40th or 20th or whatever the party is. I've done them all and would love to be able to do that. An anniversary party, certainly done those. I did a baptism in 2023. Yeah, we did a big dance party at a baptism. Spoiler, not a Mormon baptism, but it was fun nonetheless. BestDJInUtah.com is a website. I will get back to you within 24 hours with a quote. Come on now. BestDJInUtah.com.
Imagine running a small business today. It's challenging. Imaging and internet presence is an absolute must. Even with that, you're still a small star in a bright cyber universe. Now, imagine you have someone who understands how to get your site designed for your talents and then easily searched by potential clients. Imagine Lennon Design. Whether it's strictly a website or a whole package of logo creation, advertising media, and promotional materials, Lennon Design is your partner in business. They'll test the boundaries of their imagination to create something unique for you. When you need creative, affordable design, let it be Lennon Design. Call 801-699-3022 or visit LennonDesign.com.
Here in the second half of Articles of News, we do actual articles of news. Hit it, Peter.
You can't lose articles of news.
And away we go. You know, with the news and how I've started to do this in the last little while, I may not continue to do this, but I liked it so far. I allow that who is the co-host to kind of pick the news that they would like to do and an order of it. And then I like to just pull the pin, throw the grenade, and blow up the way that they want to do it. But I like having an order to begin with.
Have a plan and be ready to change the plan.
Yeah, be flexible.
Yep.
We're going to get into the LDS investments, which is where you wanted to start, but I want to start with these two very quick stories. This last Sunday, you find a link for it in the show notes, Derek Porter did his first Music in the Spoken Word, and it's just worth checking out. It's interesting to see someone new doing it, someone who looks significantly younger, and you sort of do the thing where you go, how old's that guy? Is that guy even old enough to be doing something like this? He's mid-40s, but it's still funny to
Brother
look.
Newell was pretty young when he started.
We're sure, but then 38 years, 37 years
34,
later.
34 years
Yeah.
later, right?
Yeah, they keep him in for a good long time, and I'm there for every part of that, but it is different to be like, wait, that's not the guy. He did a great job. It is worth checking out, and certainly
I didn't get to listen to it. What's his voice like?
it is not significant.
Okay.
It is not bad. I really, I want him to either have like the, and now the voice of God kind of thing, or
From beyond the hills.
yeah. Or I wanted him to be like, hey, everybody, welcome to Music in the Spoke. But he wasn't that either. It's just a voice, not distinctive, very clear, very easy to understand, very
enunciated.
Yeah, very enunciated, very great diction, but no sort of unique characteristics that I picked up on and went, oh, that's cool. No sort of accent, no, anything like that. So,
neither here nor there, but I have great hopes for him because his last name is my middle name that very few people know.
Well,
so usually people know me for Verlin P. Youd. It's Porter in the middle. So I'm excited for him.
Well, thank you for being vulnerable and sharing your middle name with all of us. I appreciate that. And then the second story that I wanted to share, this came out just the other day. I am here for every bit of it. I know that it is most people who have a missionary son or daughter's nightmare, but the trailer for the movie Heretic came out.
Oh, I loved it.
And,
I loved it.
It's Hugh Grant. He's a man who's visited by two young Mormon missionaries and sister missionaries, and they're like, oh, sorry. And I thought this was great. In the trailer, they depict where he's like, oh, would you like to come in? And they're like, unless there's a woman present. And he's like, oh, well, my wife's in the kitchen. I hope that counts. And they're like, yes. And then they get in and they're trapped in the home.
It's awesome. And he's supposedly, his wife is supposedly making blueberry pie, and they see that there's a candle that's blueberry pie.
Yes.
I'm all in. What it reminded me of, and maybe I'm admitting my faults a little here, the movie Misery.
Oh, yeah.
Stephen King. It has a little bit of that vibe. And when I saw it, I'm like, oh, this is going to be good suspense horror. This is going to be good.
Yeah, I hope that it, and you got to think that it is well done.
With Hugh Grant, it's got to be okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
Seems well researched, at least on the level of like the sister missionaries look of the age to be, you know, they're not
did.
too old or, you know, wearing something that you're like, no, a sister missionary can't wear that. They're very
Well, now they
spotty as
can
far as
wear
that
so
goes.
many things that,
Sure.
you know, yeah.
Sure. So maybe we'll do a cultural hall viewing party.
Yes, yes. And we should find out if can you interview the producer or the director or
Well, I'm talking
somebody?
to Brother Grant. That's where I'm headed.
Yes, 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 please.
Don't just relegate me to the producer or the director. No, I
Brother
will do
Hugh.
whatever.
Yeah.
I will do whatever as far as that goes. But a lot of people going, nope, too close to home.
I
too
love it.
crazy.
Oh, that's what makes it exciting and interesting.
Did
On my mission, I had some things happen that I think would be worthy of a screenplay. I could never write a screenplay. I'm terrible at that kind of stuff, but there's some things that go on that were great formula pieces of my what's the right word? Who I am as a person that were some people would consider pretty traumatic, but it was the way the Lord helped chip some of my rough edges away.
Like a headline, what are one of those things? You don't have to tell me the story, but like what's something that happened that you're like, yeah, this is a thing.
How about held at gunpoint for 6 hours and talked the man out of the gun and he finally handed it over to me?
What? Okay, I told you I'm not going to make you tell me the story, but next time we chat, I'm going to make you tell me that story. So if you have to write out some of that, I want to know that story, but that is insane. If other people have stories they want to share, contact at theculturalhall.com. Would love to hear and it doesn't always have to be like, I almost died kind of stories. If you have just those, what that just happened kind of stories, I welcome those. Contact at theculturalhall.com. So now that I've taken over and we did those, why don't you take us into these first run of stories that you were talking about?
Yeah, let's talk about LDS investments. So 2 things here. Number one, again, there are allegations that Ensign Peak didn't follow reporting rules and instructions the way that they should. And to the tune of not reporting significant holdings in their investment portfolio. I guess anytime you hold something that's over 5% of the portfolio, you need to report it. And the allegations are from 2002 to 2019, they did not report every time that happened. I don't think that's a huge deal. It's paperwork. From a personal financial point of view, I think all of us would kind of ignore that. And I'm guessing that it went over 5%, not because of an overt action on the part of the church, but that stock grew to the point that it was over 5% of the church's holdings. So,
you know, that's the same time though, as the whistleblower talking about the various things. Do you give any sort of consideration that it could just be a time where the church was like, yeah, no one's really paying attention, or you guys, what we should do is this, but go ahead and do this. And now this is just another part of not taking it as serious as we needed to, or kind of looking the other way. Because the initial allegations that the church was found essentially guilty about and had to pay the fine for, it was, oh, we received bad legal advice and then we did the thing. I could see very much that this is another thing where people are like, well, yeah, listen, you're supposed to report 5%, but you guys don't really need to. And maybe they took that advice or just sort of rolled dice and said not to.
I wasn't in the halls of what they were doing or in any of these meetings, of course, but in corporate America, I've been in lots of conversations where we've talked about, do we need to do this legally? Do we not need to do this legally? And there's lots of cases where you're near the line and you'll sit down and say, what's the business practical thing to do? What's the legal practical thing to do? And you make a judgment call. And so my guess is they made a judgment call at the time and it said, hey, it looks like our portfolio is going to go over 5% with, I'm just pulling a name out of the hat, Apple stock or Coca-Cola stock or Microsoft stock, right? And it went over 5% for some period of time, and then it probably dropped to below 5% again. And so they just said, no big deal. It's not like we made a strategic investment to have a holding of greater than 5%, which I believe is what this law is written for, is if you hold more than 5%, then that changes the way you're managing your company. And so I think my guess is they just said, yeah, it's going to happen. Let's not bother with the legal fees to take care of it because it's going to go away soon.
Yeah, I think certainly since 2019 and the whistleblower, I think the church's attitude has certainly switched to every jot and tittle that they make sure that it's like, listen, can this be perceived in any sort of way? And quite frankly, I think that's the better way to do it for the church, where this is donated money. I think you granted, the organization is the Corporation of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but I still think that you just go, you know,
Let's
we
be
need to lean right
upfront,
into
let's
it.
be
Yep.
transparent.
Yep.
And in today's world, we're naturally more transparent than we were in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
are things business-wise that you could do in the early 2000s that were perfectly legal. They're completely illegal and put you in jail now.
Sure.
So things have changed. And
Yeah.
that relates kind of the second piece of this, which is, for some reason, people think it's a big deal that the Mormon church, I'm putting that in quotes, bought $170 million industrial property near Miami,
Mm-hmm.
right? People go, why is the church buying an industrial property? Well, it comes down to practical things. If you had $1 million, would you go and put all of that $1 million in one bank? Because
Right.
you're only insured up to $100,000 in that bank. No, you would spread it around into different banks, or you would buy stocks, or you would buy real estate, or you would buy things that would help you grow that wealth. And because the church has such a large portfolio, they have the capability to invest in warehouses and office buildings and shopping malls and commercial properties and stocks and bonds and, whatever it may be. And that is very wise approach to how you steward the Lord's money.
Sure. 1.3 million square foot site.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
huge.
North of Miami, that's not cheap real estate. And over time, it's not only can be used for this, warehouse that's there, but I'm sure that over time they could be looking at, well, how does this develop? Does it become an office park? Does it become a mixed use facility? Does it become a temple and a stake center?
Sure.
What does this become?
Yeah. Interesting fact. The church owns 2% of Florida. How about that?
Yeah. And most of it's in cattle ranch.
Yeah.
Most people don't think of Florida as a cattle ranch state, but the whole northern half of Florida is completely ranch and farmland.
Fun. Also, additional fact, if you try and reach out to the folks that run that ranch, they do not want to talk to people who host shows and
Really?
talk about, or at least the one avenue that I really chased down ultimately was like, nope, we do not want to talk about it. Okay.
Oh, I would love to learn about it.
Me too.
Yeah.
So if you know someone, and I know someone's got to know someone, grandpa who did it all his whole life then gets called or gets transferred.
I know someone who grew up with the family that runs that ranch currently. So I'll talk to them and see if we can get a connection.
Please see if we can get it. And then this part of this whole thing I thought was interesting too. The church owns stock in a company called Boeing and in a company called Northrop Grumman, which essentially in some way kind of makes nuclear warfare possible. And should the church be involved in something like that?
That's a great point. It's a great point. And the article specifically quotes President Kimball talking about the church not being in support of nuclear weapons.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't provide any other quotes or references to that. And so it's certainly something worth looking at. On the other hand, I look at Northrop Grumman and Boeing, and they do a lot more than weapons of war.
Yep.
A lot more. And in Northrop Grumman's case, they employ a lot of people in Utah.
Right.
Across a lot of different sites due to acquisitions they've made over the years.
Yeah. So I guess, I mean, the church is very specific though, in that they won't invest in anything that is marijuana or CBD related.
Pornography.
Pornography related, anything alcohol related. So so
the interesting thing is, how far do you take this? Right. So if we say we can't invest in anyone who has anything to do with creating weapons of mass destruction of any kind, then let's divest from all of our technology stocks, because all of them help those companies run and do what they do.
Yeah, in some way.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, you're just making excuses. You're fine with nuclear warfare, Verlin. That's what you
I'm
want.
not. And to the extent we can put legal pressure, if so desired, on these companies to influence what they invest in, then that's what board members are for, and we can interact with board members as an investor.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting, but it's a slippery slope. If you pick this up, then you start to say, okay, well, how far do you go? Alcohol is poison? Is sugar poison? Well, if sugar is poison, then are we invested in Kellogg's? Are we invested in Nabisco?
And if sugar were poison, we got big problems for the church.
Well, it is poison, but we've all got problems because of it.
But But Emma didn't ask Joseph about sugar. She asked about other things.
That's right. If they would have been leaving their big gulps and Diet Cokes around, then it would have been a little different.
It's a little blasphemous, but the idea of that, come on, guys, if you're going to leave your big gulp cup one more time.
That's right. If I keep knocking these over, the floor is getting sticky.
Yep.
No, and I agree. We're not being blasphemous here. You and I think, both have a great reverence for the location where that occurred.
Sure.
But it's great to think about the practicalities of how that happened and where it happened and what could have been different.
Sure.
Yeah.
And to your point, that sugar is in fact poison. And so everyone who's like, I can't believe that person would drink. Blah, 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 blah. It's like,
Put the fizz down. Put the fizz down.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I think you're 100% right. Now we get into some not adult content, but adultish type content. So if you got the young ears listening, going to talk about a couple court trials. So this is a great place to press pause or fast forward a little bit as we make our way through these. Which one did you want to go to first?
Let's start with the acquittals.
Okay.
Because I think in the past, you and I and maybe other co-hosts have talked about a couple of these cases where gentlemen were accused of actions, sexual assault and other related actions to minors. And in one case, it was a stake president who had been accused of not reporting correctly the abuse of a child in his stake. And in both cases, in the case of the stake president, he's been acquitted of those charges. And the judge was very, very clear in saying that he had followed the correct legal procedure and he was completely within the law and had handled it completely appropriately in order to protect the confidence and innocence of the victim. And
which is a lot of validation and certainly something that goes sort of not counter to how I feel, but how I always feel like, man, are we trying to hide something? Are we trying to do this in a way? I mean, this is a judge saying you are being acquitted of this because you followed the way that it should be acquitted or should be handled. There's a little bit, I'm never satisfied. There's still a little bit of a moral part of it that I go, okay, that's by the law. I understand it. But also, if this was your child or, someone that you knew, would you feel a little bit differently? Law aside of it. But
yeah, what I learned in this, a little insight that I hadn't seen previously, is I think what it suggested was when the crime took place, when the abuse took place against this person, and it wasn't the stake president that did the abuse, it was confessed to the stake president. My understanding is the person who was abused was an adult by this time. And they also talked to the stake president about it. And they specifically asked the stake president, do not report this.
Right.
I don't want it reported. And so it was an adult asking for their confidentiality to be protected. And there's law that backs that up. But then I'm sure as a servant of the Lord, he prayed about it. And had to come, I'm sure he sought advice and counsel from his area authority. It says he called the legal counsel of the church, which is a wise thing to do.
Sure.
And then he had to decide how to best handle it himself. So it's good he has the validation to do that. Now, if it was understanding that was happening to a child who wasn't an adult yet, I'll bet he would have handled it quite differently.
Sure. And not been asked by an adult.
Yeah.
To your point.
Exactly.
Where did you want to go next then? Which one?
The second acquittal was 11 of 12 charges were not guilty from James Glenn Haskell, who we talked about in California.
Now I've got 16 of 17.
Okay. Well, maybe you may be better than I am.
No, I'm not better.
16 of 17.
I've got. Okay.
Is good. So what's curious to me is the last charge, the jury was deadlocked. And they could not come up with a verdict either way, which troubles me to some extent. And it sounds like the judge is now asking for a further hearing to understand the details behind that from the jury and what he needs to do to continue that or drop it. But for me, it's good to see the legal process be exercised. Both sides get their fair take at it. And we follow that legal process.
Yeah, the details on that particular, the Haskell case is they have like phone call conversations. If you want to get into a really deep dive on it, it is certainly something that you can do. But, there are phone calls of this gentleman saying something like, listen, there will be no touching going forward, I promise. And it's like, okay, well, it's very clear that something has transpired, that this guy is drawing such a fine line that it needs to, not go any further. So you hear acquittal and you go, oh yeah, see, falsely accused. And that isn't
Yeah.
what this is.
There were some other interesting things around the case that they mentioned in the article. It seems like a majority of the children in this case were adopted, which can be its own challenge. And I don't know all the background of all the adoptions and the situations that these children came from. The other piece of it was evidently this family was quite strict in their discipline. And parents, need to decide what discipline works best for their children. I know in my case, I probably would not have had my daughter wear a paper bag or a plastic bag for clothing.
Yeah, geez.
But a couple of times I felt like I needed to do something that drastic.
Yeah.
Not to joke about it too much, but we had specific punishments that we laid out for certain behaviors, and that's what happened. I learned early on being a father, and you may have experienced this as well. There is one time in my life where I swatted the behind of my son because he was misbehaving in church. And honestly, I have never felt worse in my life than the 10 seconds after I did that.
Wow.
And so that was the one and only time, and we still joke about it. And he and I went to a baseball game and parked in the parking lot of that church a month or two ago. And I said, there's the exact brick I was standing on when that happened.
Now, quick question, side tangent on that. Did you end up apologizing?
Yes. He was only 20 months old at the time.
Okay.
And I apologized.
Okay.
Now, to be fair, I was swatted my fair share at times growing up.
Sure.
It was just part of the generation. And I personally don't feel anything bad towards my parents because of it. Maybe subconsciously I do.
Sure.
But some of the situations were actually quite humorous. That we still tell stories about them when we get together for family reunions.
Yeah, it's hard in that situation. I mean, people may be hearing this and be like, guys, it's not hard to not hit your kids. And you're right. You just don't do it.
That's right.
But any parent who has been not sleeping, stressed out, can't figure out a way, and you just, you can kind of become overwhelmed with emotion, rage, or whatever the thing is. It's no good. It's no good.
Nope, not at all.
And then the last story within this is the Minnesota Court of Appeals rejected a multi-pronged appeal. This in regards to Michael Adam Davis, who's 39. He's a former Elders Quorum president. This is in Michigan? Minnesota.
Yes,
Minnesota. He appealed his conviction on charges of a felony first-degree criminal sexual conduct, 2 counts of second-degree criminal sexual conduct, and 1 charge of indecent exposure. The court found that he had sexually assaulted a then 13-year-old boy under his care multiple times back in 2018.
Over the course of years.
Yeah. Yes. This is...
He deserves the 30-year sentence he got. He exercised the appeal, and they were quite definitive. There are no grounds for appeal in this case.
Yep. We looked at it, and nope, sorry, you will be serving your time.
Yep, get used to orange.
I didn't know this. You can go on a little vacation, a little visit to go home early to visit some family if you want to as a missionary. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I wish I would have known this, because about halfway through my mission in Haiti, when I had talked to my parents one time and hadn't had a single bit of fast food for 10 months, I would have loved to catch a plane home and spend a weekend in San Francisco and then find my way back to Port-au-Prince. But
who wouldn't? We're, of course, referencing Lisa Barlow, who is from the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Her son, Jack, serving a mission in Colombia. And then, there was a bunch of drama when he decided to go serve a mission from the other ladies of the Real Housewives, because how could he go and share such false information, and on and on and on and on. Lisa said, I'm going to support my son because I love him. And then he just was like, yeah, I'm going to come back. I'm back. What's up?
Yeah. I love that the way they phrase it is, Barlow shared that Jack had returned for a visit with the family. Now, you and I, having served missions and know plenty of people on missions, know that is not a thing.
Yeah.
There's a reason he came home, and I'm glad they're protecting his confidentiality. I don't want to know, don't need to know. But it isn't just for convenience of visiting your family because you miss your brother.
Yep. Yeah. It is not that
he's
simple.
Home for a reason. hopefully a good reason, and he's doing the things or taking care of the things that need to be taken care of, whether that's physical, mental, emotional, whatever the thing is. And it says that he's planning on heading back to Colombia. And so I hope he does. I wish him the best in doing that.
Yeah, this next story, listen, if you came back and you're like, oh, good, they're done with the terrible stuff. No, this one is absolutely terrible. But it is news, and it has been all of the news here in Utah just because of what a tragedy it is. Wealthy Mormon dad posted a chilling final Instagram message before shooting his wife and killing himself at their $1.5 million Utah home. Olin Johnson, his wife Carolyn Johnson, who beloved in the community, she a vocal teacher, a performer, countless friends of mine on social media knew and had worked with her or had studied under her tutelage. Just an amazing, giving, loving woman. He shot her and then turned the gun on himself, leaving 6 children orphaned. Now, they're not under the age of 18, but they are, they're kids who now do not have their parents. He posted, no matter how crappy a person I am, motorcycles always love me back. Oh, and skiing loves me too. A couple of his kids immediately responded saying, you're not a crappy person. You're the best person in the world. Love you, Dad, and love that you taught me to be a badass motorcycle rider. Their daughter, Savannah, said. So no motive yet. Some people think that there might, and this is all speculation, but think that there might be someone else that had been a part of like their relationship, right? He might have been stepping out. Or some allegations I've heard also of like money, financial infidelity. These are all just speculations, nothing concrete. It is a thing because my wife and I choose to watch the shows where they investigate this and then they find out why all these things happen. It's my favorite, my wife's favorite kind of television. It is these kind of stories that, and I've talked about this before, where I reiterate the deal with my wife and say, listen, if it's so bad and you hate me so terribly that you are thinking about killing me, I need you to look me in the eyes and say, I am thinking about killing you, and I will give you more than your fair share of money, and we can just separate our ways. Just don't kill me, please.
Yeah.
And she laughs and she's like, you'd never. And I was like, trust me when I say I don't want you to kill me. So I will give you, more than your
whatever it is.
If that is literally how it is, let me do it. These kind of stories.
This is tragic. I mean, I was heartbroken for 2 or 3 days after hearing this. It just baffles me. And none of us know the circumstances. Like you said, it's all conjecture at this point, but to be able to be put in a mental state where you felt that was your only way to act, I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah. So definitely hearts, and all the things that we can do.
Yeah.
Go out to the family. But I mean, I get every impression that it's not a thing that anybody thought was coming. Some people have sort of said, Monday morning quarterback. Oh yeah, he was, I could have seen it coming. I don't think anyone.
No, it sounds like not. No. And it sounds like like you said, such a big impact on the community, let alone their family. That's huge. I did have one quick question. I mean, you're a Utah native. You can comment on this, and a little bit more lighthearted here, but they refer to the couple appear to have it all, not the least their stunning family home set in the middle of rural Utah.
Yeah, in American Fork. I haven't. Maybe they were kind of foothills. That would be the only way that I could even like try and give that rural.
Yeah, wouldn't that be alpine if it was in the foothills or highland?
Well, I mean, I think American Fork touches that. Listen,
okay,
there are still some parts of American.
There's still cows in American Fork. You're right.
Yeah.
Right.
There are still some parts of there where I go, where is this? But I would not call it rural because within 5 minutes, you're strip malling or driving the freeway.
Exactly. There's a Chick-fil-A within 10 minutes. I'm not sure it's rural, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I just get that way when I look at articles like this. I had a journalism class in high school, and our teacher was all about the facts being right, and so.
Well, what is the definition of rural? Maybe that's a
Good question.
Why
And
don't
maybe
you
the
tell?
definition is if you can see a cow within 5 minutes, maybe that's rural.
I
And so
mean, you
American Fork
said the
has that.
definition is whether you can get to a Chick-fil-A in 5 minutes. I'm going to
Yeah.
ask you to tell me about what baptized children can do while I get a ruling on what rural is.
Well, it sounds like baptized children can and should, and in large measure have been able to do a lot of things in the Lord's church. Sister Porter, who's the primary general president, recently gave a talk where she talked about all the things that baptized children can do. There are some new things that have changed in the handbook. One of the changes in the handbook says that children can actually be called on, as long as they're baptized, to pray opening and closing prayers in sacrament meeting, as well as be asked to give talks and participate in other ways. And I think this is awesome. I think this is great. I mean, we're all familiar with the primary program every year.
Yep.
And how cute that is, or how painful it can be if you're one of the members of that primary. I hated being an 11-year-old in the primary program. It was my least favorite thing.
Oh,
But we love Mother's Day. We love Father's Day. We love, one of the things I love personally is when a family is asked to do a special musical number.
yeah.
And
You get the
stand
whole
up and
family
sing.
gathered
You
and
get
the
the
young
mom and dad and all the kids down to a 3-year-old singing some kind of note. I think that's beautiful. And so that's great. But they give all kinds of other things that children can do. Give talks in sacrament meeting, the prayers, as I mentioned, sing with primary songs now showing up in the new hymn book. We can use those hymns during sacrament meeting to make primary children feel more welcome.
I know this is sort of a challenge to leadership, but this is the thing where I just want to say I'll believe it when I see it. Like
Yeah.
give me a 9-year-old saying the opening prayer at General Conference.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, it would be huge.
It would be.
Can you imagine the impact and the paradigm shift of individuals within the church? Because we're being told, hey, you can use these members and lifelong covenant keepers and all of these things if, after the Tabernacle Choir at Temple Square has sung, Johnny, Vincent is going to be saying the prayer, and they have to get the little booster block out for him, and they bring the thing all the way down, and maybe he's got some sort of speech impediment that's just cute. Listen, it should be done. If we want it to happen, it needs to come from those type of things.
Well, I think these kind of things, because of the culture of our church and the traditions, these are the kind of things that take overt effort to make these happen. So a challenge to bishoprics and branch presidencies and stake presidencies is go make this happen. Bring it up in each of your meetings for the next couple of months and figure out how this works best for you. Right? Yeah. I hate to admit this again, but we've already established I'm old. I can remember a time when I was young where only male temple recommend holding priesthood holders were allowed to say the closing prayer in sacrament meeting.
Yeah.
And so, I think this is awesome. I think this is fantastic. Now, Sister Porter gave some other advice to the children themselves that she said would help them to grow and how they can make a difference. And I thought I'd read them quickly.
Yeah, please.
And the first one is pray to Heavenly Father and ask, help me know who I can help today. That was her first. Number 2, welcome others to primary. Number 3, sit by someone who is new and help them learn the songs. Number 4, help with primary activities. And number 5, be a leader in your family. Ask to have family prayer or share what you learned in primary. Now, as I read these, I thought, how do these not apply to every member of the rising generation, to use the right term?
Thank you.
How do these not apply to every member of an elders quorum and every member of a relief society, right? Yep. All of us, these 5 things would make a huge difference in our lives and the lives of others if we could just do these 5 simple things.
Well, hopefully they'll lead bottom up.
Hopefully. I think that's a great idea.
The next story that you have is I think this was from the Salt Lake Tribune, I want to say. Maybe from the Deseret News, charts.
I think this was published by the church at General Conference, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just charting the growth of, first of all, the church membership, second of all, dedicated temples, third of all, wards and branches, and fourth of all, stakes. And I'm not going to say. And then if you look at the line, because this is an audio program, I'm not pulling them up during for the YouTube audience, which by the way, subscribe to the Cultural Hall on YouTube, won't you?
There's your version if you want the YouTube version.
Right there you go. They go up. They hockey stick to the right. that is how I would say that they go. And it's significant to look at it and go, man, for the first 140 years, it was like, okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Here we go.
So you're a list geek. You love lists. I know this.
Yes.
I love charts. Charts
Okay.
are my favorite mental food. And so I did a little bit of analysis in each one of these charts, just a quick little observation in each one. So in the chart of membership, it took us from 1830 to 1950. So what's that? 120 years?
120 years, yep.
Took us 120 of the first years of the church to get the same amount of members that we got last year.
Wow.
I think that's cool. That's a big deal. Temples. We're adding now 11 temples dedicated in 1 year. It took us the first 11 years of the church to get 11 temples, according to this chart. The next one I thought was really cool is it took us 70 years. It took us 70 years to get 3,000 branches or wards.
Okay.
And that's how many additional branches or wards were added last year.
Significant.
Which is pretty cool. And then stakes.
I was just going to say, you can't do all the charts and then leave out one.
Yeah. So stakes, it took us 140 years to get to 650 stakes. And we added 650 stakes last year.
Cool.
So, people can say the membership is not growing as fast as it was in the late 80s and 90s. I think we're about to turn around the other way in Africa. And as I look at it, India has just barely started being touched. And the minute we get into China, it's going to change completely.
Yep.
There's plenty of room to grow. We just have to keep up the effort and the good fight to do it.
And you, my friend, will have charts aplenty when that happens. So get ready.
Yes.
I want to go back to your rural versus urban. Any area that is not urban is rural, so you only get one or the other. If it's not an urban area.
I thought there was suburban in between. I thought it was urban, suburban, rural.
So according to the census of the Health Resources and Service Administration of your federal government, it is either urban or rural.
Okay. Well, American Fork is not urban.
Yeah. And urbanized areas are areas of 50,000 or more people, which American Fork is not. So.
Oh, it's not people per square mile. That's interesting.
Yep.
Because in New York, you can put 50,000 people in a block or two. And in American Fork, you spread them through Pleasant Grove and Linden as well.
Right. So it's different cities that would make American Fork a rural community.
Okay.
The more you know. I liked your little subline on this. LDS dating slang. Are you fetching kidding me? I appreciated that little take on this. Now, let me ask you, are you familiar with all of these terms?
I was familiar with all but two.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll go quickly through these because I had maybe one or two that I
Yeah, we can add to the list. Absolutely. Yeah, please. Yeah.
This is Lissa Grenfell. She's been on YouTube doing a bunch of you can look like a Mormon, you can sound like a Mormon, all these different things. And she did a thing about the dating slang. This again.
And she left the church in 2017, so 7 years ago.
Yeah, but has only in the last year really started to get into the social media aspect of saying, can you believe how ridiculous this church is?
Yeah.
So uses terms again, if you got young ears, I can't, we're telling them to come back and go away and come back. So here are the terms. I would be curious as to which ones you didn't know, but let's go through them. NICMO was the first one. Did you know that one?
Knew that one, and that one's used well beyond the church. I've heard that one outside of church as well.
It stands for the non-committal makeout session, basically the Mormon booty call. The next one is Levi Levin. Also
never heard of this one.
You had never heard of it?
No.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out what the connection is. Why is it called Levi Levin? Usually there's some connection, but I don't know. Levi as in the genes.
As in the genes, not as in the
I was thinking as in Levitical. Oh my gosh.
It's also known as derfing, which I'd never heard that.
Me neither.
And I get where that term is coming from, and also dry humping, which I think is an interesting
Yeah.
thing. My grandparents called it sparking, because the
yeah.
zippers would hit and cause sparks, not really. So we have
Gotcha.
always called it that.
Okay.
So yeah, okay. Levi, love it.
We didn't have a term for it, but the third one is one that I still think is an urban legend. I mean,
Agreed.
I may be old, but I'm connected to lots of people, have asked everyone in the world. Everyone says, oh yeah, my cousin's sister's brother,
Right.
did this, right?
Yep.
And the minute I hear that, it's like, okay, urban
Yep.
legend.
Yeah, soaking.
Yeah.
And with the definition, well, kids have left. Putting it in, but not moving it at all, because it's not intercourse. If it's just in and then it's out, then it's not intercourse.
Yeah, we're not going to get into the details here, but there's an issue of practicality and effects, and I just don't believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Filling your canteen, you get with as many people as you can before you go on your Mormon mission. Did you know about that?
I did not. I didn't know that term, and I wasn't completely clear on this. Was this dating as many people as possible,
No, it's
making
kissing.
out with as
It's
many
kissing.
people?
Yeah, making out. Doing
Oh,
whatever you
okay.
can.
Well, then I did a good job of filling my canteen, man. I'm proud of that. I
Yeah.
wish I would have known the term.
Yeah, because the idea is you're about to go into the desert,
Yeah.
so you fill your canteen.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
with the only thing that I would say as I look back on my life, and I appreciate the pride in which you take of that part of your life, because I as well, but
Not in a creepy way. I never
no.
misled anyone, right?
Yeah, no, I feel bad because I think sometimes I wasn't as forthright with, I just want to participate in this as a fun activity, and not to say that I left a lot of like broken hearts and debris along the way, but I'm sure that
No.
someone thought, hey, this was more than what it was, and I just was like, this is a good time. This is what I'm in for.
I had lots of friends, and I didn't make very many enemies, and I had lots of young ladies who were writing me while I was on my mission, but 90% of them stopped writing at some point during my mission. When I got back, they were married. So it didn't bother me. It didn't bother them. And, we were all friends.
And then the last one on her list, at least, is Sweet Spirit, a girl who is only getting married if they bring back polygamy, presumably not very attractive. And I'm assuming you've heard that one before.
I have. I think that started back in the 1970s. I'm sure you're familiar with Saturday Night Live in the 70s.
Sure.
Watching historical footage as it was before you were born. But they had a skit where they would talk about someone who was special.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time we started using that's so special. She's so special. Then that's when the Sweet Spirit term started being used.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The only one that I would add to this list that I think is unique to Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints or Mormon people is the idea of heavy petting. I can recount to you multiple people who, when we've been talking about the awkward like bishops interviews in our teenage years, where they're like, "Are you participating in heavy petting?" And it's like, "What? I don't even know what that is. What petting heavy? Why would I pet like a dog? What are we talking about?" It's an interesting term for obviously wandering hands or Roman hands.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew the term petting and heavy petting, but you're right. I don't know of any friends growing up that ever, certainly us as youth, we never used that term. That was an adult term.
Yeah, the question, we
made out, and it either was a heavy makeout or it wasn't. Actually, we used the baseball analogy for second, third base, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
And you'd never be like, "Oh, dude, did you heavy pet?" "Yeah, you bet I did. I pet so heavy." Like,
no.
That's not a thing. That's not a thing. We still have so much news to do. So much. We've been going an hour. Should we push through? We all have work. Let no one shirk.
Put your shoulder to the wheel.
All right, let's do it. We can make this go a little bit longer. Everyone, this episode is going to go a little bit longer. Tell me about we mentioned this when it initially came about.
2 months
at BYU,
ago.
Hawaii.
Yeah, Kanan Barton had some issues with the honor code. Evidently, he was reported for his hairstyle. Kanan is African-American of descent. And evidently some of the security guards at BYU-Hawaii were not happy with his particular grooming approach. And we talked about the fact of, how do you interpret extremes in grooming or non-extremes in grooming? And could that be heritage-based or ethnic-based?
Sure.
It sounds like in this case, the NAACP Legal Defense Fund has joined the discussion. And I actually like the way that they approached it. They're joining and supporting Canaan, and they didn't reach out and say, we're going to sue you or we're taking legal action. They reached out and said, we want to help this discussion along and figure out how things can be done better, and so that that these kinds of issues don't come up in the future, and that so you can treat people with the respect they deserve.
Well, and the issue is interpretation.
Yeah.
100%, and likely going to be aimed towards something that isn't what you would quintessentially see the white man or woman's hair, right? And I'm not saying it's specific towards black people or anything like that, but when they say extreme, if it's, finger length on top and shaved on the sides and, combable for the gentleman and clean straight hair with no
ears showing and no hair on the collar. Yeah.
I think that I think that's the issue, and I think that's the issue that he took, saying, listen, it is clean. I take care of it. It is part of my culture to have hair like this. I am worthy of a temple recommend to be able to do that. And that's the other part of it too, is I hope deeply that this is not an incident for Canaan or for anyone else to go, well, forget you guys.
Yeah.
I was doing all the things and you guys got caught up in something that, quite frankly, shouldn't have been an issue, but, doesn't need to be brought up, because he did. He talked to several people. In fact, I think, as I'm remembering the story, like he went and talked to the president or the dean or someone and said, tell me how in this I am breaking these rules, or how I am to interpret that I need to do something about this, and was left with nothing. And so I also appreciate the organizations getting involved, saying, like, guys, clarity here.
Yeah, the NCAAP's Legal Defense Fund statement was, together we can work to ensure that students at BYU-Hawaii, regardless of race or ethnicity, are in spaces where they feel safe and their rights are upheld. I think that's true for all of us. We all want to feel that we're safe and our rights are upheld. Yeah.
There's a great episode, moving through this, because we still do have a couple of news stories I want to make sure we get to. Great episode of Mormonland. If you don't listen to Mormonland, Peggy Fletcher stack over at the Salt Lake Tribune. I know everyone have your immediate reaction to it, but try opening your brain.
You mean that communist newspaper, that socialist rag?
Jeez. And I just wish to reiterate,
I'm joking, by the way.
No, I know.
I am totally
I will say this, though, too. There are some times when I'm listening to Peggy where I'm like, pretty pointed question there, Peggy. Like, let's try and back it out a little bit. I love her. I constantly will tell her what a great job she does, because she's able to talk with a lot of people. Tremendous respect for the years upon decades of work that she's done. There are some times that I'm like, you could have asked that in a much less pointed way.
None of us are perfect, and we're all in different places on how we deal with the church and the spectrum of belief.
Sure.
So.
And just because you don't agree with something doesn't mean that it's not either the truth or exists or
worth talking about and understanding.
Yeah, jeez. I just there was enough pushback with the episode that we did, the Second Class Saints, with Matt Harris just recently.
Awesome episode.
Yeah, so great. But there was enough of a pushback that's like, hey, I don't know about, and it's like, okay, I mean, that it happened that way, and he documents and is able to say, this is how it happened. From his historian's perspective, here's how these things work. Now, that's what he found in his interpretation and his recounting of the data he has at hand, right? Yeah. Absolutely worth understanding. So all that precursor to say, they did a recent episode about same-sex marriages. And remember, I don't know, in the last decade, I can't remember the exact year, where it essentially was, if you were in a same-sex relationship and you decided to get married now that same-sex marriage is legal, that you would then just subsequently be excommunicated from the church.
Yeah, or have your membership removed.
Yeah. We do it, same thing, but it's tender.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just different words, just like rising generation.
Exactly, the youths. But what that episode is about is that that's not necessarily the case. If you find yourself in a more liberal part of this country, or in a conservative part of this country, but with a liberal leader, more liberal leaning leader, that those people are not finding themselves being removed from the church. They are finding themselves to be far more welcomed within the walls of the church.
I will agree with the way you've positioned it. I would add something else because I have had the opportunity to serve as a branch president and as a bishop and on multiple high councils. I would look at it as not just, are you liberal conservative? Do you have a local leader and leadership that is attuned and sensitive to the individual needs of that individual situation?
Sure.
And I think that's something that we would all want as we're working through any of these kind of things, whatever it may be. We want someone to understand our place individually and follow the Spirit to make these kind of decisions. And the last thing I want is the handbook to say, if someone does this, this, and this, then excommunicate this, and
Right.
this, disfellowship, this, and this, formal probation, this, and this, informal probation. Those are all the old words.
Mhm.
Giving the latitude to local leadership, I think, is a wonderful, wonderful thing. Now, that's a double-edged sword because, to your point, it can be influenced by the kind of social and political perspective of that
Sure.
leadership if people aren't careful.
Well, and problematic for a couple of things. The first thing that I'll say, though, if someone wants to be in the church, and I think that the church is starting to go this attitude, but if someone wants to be in the church,
Mm-hmm.
I would say 99% of those people, like if we need to do some sort of like probation, but they're still in the church, I find that membership removal is just should not be a part of it. Now, I know there's a time and there's a place, and I can
There
certainly
is.
point out individuals from recent news that I'd be like, yes, of course,
Yep.
you lost your membership card, you're done. But if it's someone that says, I really want to be a part of this
I want to be
organization,
here. I believe this. I
Yeah.
have a testimony.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that by and large it should be that. But the other tricky thing within this is because we have a lay leadership and because those those change over 5 or 10 years depending on what the calling is,
Mm.
it's jarring. Yes,
Yeah.
I feel at home, I'm comfortable and I'm supported and I'm able to worship and continue to love and serve my Savior Jesus Christ. New bishop comes in, you're out. What? And that
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
is a thing where agreed, I don't think that the handbook should be so prescriptive as to if you check more than 5 of the boxes, then you have found yourself out. But like, I think that there maybe are some protections for people who want to be there. Maybe that bishop, the new bishop or new stake president hasn't ever, had an experience to know
Mm-hmm.
a gay married couple, or you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah. Well, one of the things we can do as members when we run into that kind of a situation where we think maybe it's not being treated the right way is say, listen, I understand you and where you're coming from.
Mhm.
Would it be okay if you and I counseled with the stake president together?
Sure.
Right?
Like
Would
that.
it be okay if we got some additional perspective here? Because I'd like to learn. I would like to grow. I would like to figure out how to do the right thing.
Yeah, and the way, and it's not the exact same. Certainly, some people feel I may feel differently. But imagine if the bishop of your ward now, you're in your ward, you're serving in your calling, you're great, and you move to this new ward, and they go 38 years with your wife. Sorry, 30 and less is all we do here. Those are your choices, and you're going. I love this person, and we love Jesus. Can we not? Nope. Sorry. You can't do that. I know it's not
That's why
exactly the
that's
same.
why I don't like the firm rules, this. It's like the Sabbath day. Don't tell me all the things I can and can't do. Let me work it out and what helps me grow best in my testimony of Jesus.
Sure.
And
Well,
I think there's some of that here too.
Well, that's all good, but you can't get on the water because the devil's on the water.
That's right. That's
Otherwise, you're fine. Tell me what you're going to be bringing to the next bridal shower and or wedding.
So this,
you go to.
I was both crying and laughing at the same time.
Yeah.
So this woman is getting married and they throw a wedding shower, of course, and wedding showers are always awkward things from what I understand, having had daughters and a wife. Whether you get lingerie and what kind it is, all of that kind of stuff. Well, evidently someone thought that it would be clever or smart or funny to give this young lady, who it turns out this young lady is not going to be able to have children naturally.
Yeah.
Adoption's always a choice, but whoever gave her this gift gave her a gift that had pregnancy tests in the gift.
Yeah.
Now I can see BYU roommates doing that to a roommate potentially, but giving them baby clothing and baby blankets and things like that just poor taste.
Yeah.
right? Someone trying to be funny, it just proves that there's ignorant and people that make bad judgments all the time.
Well, and it's interesting because I've seen this shift just in the time that I have DJ'd weddings and you have toasts. And back when I
Yeah.
first started, you very often would hear a parent say something like, "And we can't wait to have grandchildren."
Yes.
It's a very loving sentiment. I understand where it comes
Yeah.
from. You do not hear that anymore.
Yeah.
And when you do, it is such a social faux pas. It seems that everyone goes, are they done talking about this yet? Can we be done? They should not be saying this. And I
Well,
mean,
I don't know if you've been to a wedding or a sealing in the temple recently.
mhm,
The sealers have been given very specific instructions to not spend any time pontificating and sharing their thoughts and ideas and advice and counsel anymore,
mm,
because I think some of this was happening, and they've been asked to stick to the script, stick to the sealing ordinance itself. Let's focus on that. That's why
yeah.
we're here. But yeah, sometimes it's just not appropriate to be giving people advice that frankly they don't need and aren't interested in, and will leave a bad taste and experience in their mouth rather than a pleasant and happy and spiritual experience.
Yeah, well, and even further than that, I mean, everyone knows that listens. My wife and I don't have children together. We have talked about it before, but I can think of no one in my family and extended friend group who's ever been like, "When are you going to have kids?" And I think it would be really hard for me if someone had put any sort of pressure. Now, if they were being funny, I'm sure that that's happened. I'm sure that someone
Yeah.
has made sort of jokes, and I'm the butt of
Yeah.
it as far as
Well,
that.
it usually would come in, Richie, aren't you getting a little past your prime? You
Yeah.
better think about that if you're going to think about it, right?
Yeah, right. So some of those jokes, but I'm so grateful to the point that I messaged both my mother and my father and my in-laws. This is a couple of weeks ago now, to just tell them thank you. You know what? We haven't closed the door on this, but thank you for never bringing it up.
I love that. I love that. You may know, I personally know a couple that was in one of our wards years and years ago. And they did not have children, and they were in the ward for several years. And I know that several people said things to them about it.
Mhm.
Now they later decided to no longer participate in the church, and I'm sure that wasn't the only reason.
Sure.
But I'm sure that was a contributing factor.
Sure.
They just felt uncomfortable coming and being subject to people making those kinds of comments.
Yeah. And the worst thing for me about that is I can think about times that I said it, and I just know better.
Well, we
now
all
I do
learn.
better.
We
Yeah.
all learn. Yeah. We learn to do better.
This last one, you sort of headline as church building escapades. I appreciate that headline. Why don't you take the first one and I'll round out the two, and then we'll get out of here.
Super. Well, it seems that there was a local deer that decided that they needed some shelter, crashed into one of the windows at the church. I'm sure it was near one of the front doors, and spent a little bit of time in a church building wandering around, and I'm sure causing some damage along the way.
Mhm.
But when you've got as many buildings as we have and as many animals, I get deer in my backyard. Not a surprise that a deer ended up in a church. It could have been much worse.
But do you have a sign out in front of your house that says visitors welcome like the church does?
No, but I have no fences around my yard, and I have a pond in the backyard that wildlife love to come and experience.
You sure you want to move? It's not too late.
It's done.
It is too
done
late,
deal.
he says.
It's too late.
This in Brentwood, I want to say this is California.
That's right.
Police are investigating a Brentwood church was vandalized with graffiti, making politically charged claims about
I think it was
where the
about
church
nuclear weapons. Right?
invests its money. Actually, if you go and click on the link for the story, I can tell you exactly what it was. It was that
nice.
The church is
Genocide or something like that, right?
Yeah. We're makers of genocide. We're huge fans. If you know anything about the church,
go genocide.
Yeah, pro genocide LDS Church. It's just sad, says Derek Rossi, a member of the church. It's just sad to see action being taken to churches that are just there to worship. Church officials took action after members like himself reached out to get the graffiti removed before members attended sacrament meetings. So they got that taken care of. If you have an issue, says Rossi, take it up with church leadership. We can have a discussion and we can talk through whatever concerns you have. Let's talk about it in person and see how we can address it. And
I think these guys were kind of lightweight. 20 years ago, we had the same situation. Someone broke into our church.
Okay.
Used spray paint to spray paint all kinds of way nastier stuff all through the hallways. and it's been long painted over, and now we have that, crazy wallpaper that they took from the bottom half and put it in the top half as
Sure,
well.
sure.
So you can
Oh,
get a skin burn any place in the church now.
Anytime you lean against the wall.
Fall down, lean over, whatever it is, you're going to scrape your skin off. Yeah.
So I hope that people that might graffiti heard what Verlin is calling bunch of weakies. Why don't you try and do a little bit better? If you're gonna do it, if you're gonna do graffiti, stop being such a wuss about it. Come on,
Yeah,
graffiti like we
graffiti
did
like a pro. I grew up in California next to the hood. Come on, have some standards.
And then the follow-up on this story. The two 18-year-old brothers who police said lit a firework blast, injuring 4 people at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Henderson, Nevada, just outside of Las Vegas, have been indicted. The indictment documents provided by District Court of Clark County revealed that Caden and Connor, I haven't seen anything affirming that they are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
But it was a church building.
Yeah,
right?
It was a church building, and their names
was during a
Caden
church
and Connor.
activity.
Yep.
Yeah, and Caden and Connor sounds not the stereotype, but
it sounds. Listen, I'll stereotype. Sounds very Mormon. They're charged with 2 counts of burglary of a structure while in possession of a deadly weapon, 2 counts of manufacture and or possession of explosive or incendiary device, 2 counts of possession of explosive or incendiary device, 1 count of damage to property for religious purposes, 2 counts of using explosives to damage or destroy property, knowing or having reason to believe that a human being is in there at the time, 4 counts of battery, 2 counts of first-degree arson. Man, if you can, siblings.
bad choices.
Yeah. Just
I don't know the motivation here. I don't know the intent, but people can do some stupid things. I know some missionaries that did some dumb things that probably could be prosecuted under certain laws.
Sure,
but not good.
Well, 4th of July is coming up.
I love fireworks.
Yeah,
I am. One of the sad things about moving out of this house is we have a field behind our house that is a couple of acres.
Mm-hmm.
That is a soccer fields actually, and on every 4th of July night, we light off about $1,000 worth of illegal fireworks.
There you go.
The whole neighborhood comes, and it will be missed this year.
Yeah. Well, you made your choice.
We did,
and now you got to, and then you got to make the bed, and then
now
you got to remake the bed. Because
right.
the bed hasn't been built and you want to move the bed from the basement to the upstairs. So
that's right.
Verlin, I hope that this episode has nourished and strengthened your body.
If you weren't healthy enough to listen this week, that you'll be healthy enough to listen next week.
And that when the time comes, you'll be able to travel home in safety. In the meantime, Chris at Alpine Lakes Travel, Rick McGee, Debbie Wanless, Chocolate Cake Bites Podcast, and the Tiger with a U will be saving a seat for you
on the back row
of the Cultural Hall.
Save me a seat, it's sure to be neat on the back row.